Right. Uh, Good evening and welcome to another session with the AMP Industry Connect. It's a pleasure to have Dhruv. Uh, but first, let's welcome all the attendees that are joining us. Dhruv, do you mind? We'll wait for like a couple of minutes and we can start.
That sounds good, Anirudh. We'll wait for some time.
All right. While we're waiting, I think we can probably just start doing a little bit of an introduction. It's easier that way, right? So my name's Anirudh. I'm currently based out of Gurgaon, and I work for a company called the Ayurveda Experience. I currently lead their operations and customer support vertical for the States, India, and Australia in terms of territories. A little bit about Dhruv. I think Dhruv, you wanna take that bit?
I'll let you take that bit, Anirudh, and I'll add on.
All right. So Dhruv is a very, very well experienced professional. He's been in the marketing space for the last decade or a little more than a decade. If I'm right, he studied at SIBM. Is that right?
Right?
Yeah. Yeah. And during this time, he's moved between different industries, I'd say, in terms of he's moved from consumer goods to real estate and now he's in policy. So very, very interesting journey that he's had. Uh, so yeah, anything you want to add on, Dhruv?
No, you were generous in saying I'm very experienced, so I don't think I think you've been kind that way, but I'll just say I'm someone who's not had a very conventional career path, and having taken part in some programs even after completing my MBA. Uh, I just want to say, take a moment to compliment the people who've joined this um, chat right now, and also to all of you pursuing this program, the AMP program, because I know what it takes to be working and to be pursuing a program. And, throughout our schooling life, our college life, a lot of us have partaken in education with an aim of ensuring that we get some output from it. Mostly the desired output for us has not been in the form of what we take in the form of knowledge, but it's about where do we go from there? What's the placement that we get? Uh, so doing it at this point and having had a conversation with you, Anirudh, in the past as well, I just feel that it's great, and you must take a moment to compliment yourselves as well, that you're doing something with just one expectation from the output, which is to just learn, share, and unlearn.
Very true. That's such a well put thought that that's pretty much the objective that we have is to learn, unlearn, and relearn. Uh, but getting into your understanding and how you've looked at it, how is marketing a brand, and how does a brand thrive in the kind of environment wherein you have so many brands popping up every day, especially with the startup culture, so many brands, different sectors. How do you ensure your brand thrives?
I wish there was a magic wand, Anirudh, and we had the answer to that, because a very direct answer to that, because all brands would, in an ideal world, an ideal state, want to thrive. But I think it's a combination of various factors, and I think core to uh, a lot of it is actually, a brand really looking at the mirror and saying, "Why do I exist?" Right? The very obvious answer that a brand will have is that I exist because I have to be profitable. Well, that's like a given, right? That's like table stakes. You exist because you are going to make money, but your reason for existence, sole reason for existence, can't be that. What are you doing that also ensures you're able to lead profitably? So I think purpose, as they call it, it's often a buzzword as well, but purpose is pretty important for brands that thrive. I don't want it to be very academic when I say something like this, that, we must be purpose driven, both as people and as brands, but it is true, right? What is purpose? At the end of the day, purpose is the North Star for brands that are new, and are doing exceedingly well, or brands that are what we call legacy brands that have stood the test of time, but continue to thrive. They continue to reinvent themselves. The one thing that you'll find in common is actually the brands having a purpose. So, let's just take an example about brands that thrive. Um, Anirudh, let me just ask you, do you think Nike as a brand thrives?
Yes,
Do you,
stands
you know
out
what, Nike's purpose is?
to promote healthy lifestyle and obviously very well designed sporting goods.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So, Nike has a very simple purpose, and let's just talk about purpose as a North Star, right? So, we're talking about brands that thrive, and now we're talking about what's that common link between brands that thrive. And I'm saying that purpose is one of the common links. So let's talk about Nike's purpose. Nike's purpose is that, they want to inspire athletes all around the world. And what's the definition of athlete? If you have a body, you're an athlete. So, in short, what are they doing? They're inspiring every human being to give it their best shot when it comes to leading a healthy life, like you said, Anirudh, right? Which is why a lot of how they actually market their products, how their communication is, you'll find it all centered around that. Just do it is just a way of expressing that externally, right? Just do it because you have a body and you're an athlete. But at the core of who they are is this whole North Star that everyone has a body and everyone can aspire to bring their best version when they try to do that. I mean, let's take another brand, for example. I hope this is okay, Anirudh. We're just talking about some brands and really trying to talk about brands that thrive and talking about, what the common
I
link
think
is.
it's great that we've got an example like Nike, and we're delving into other like brands as such, because we have live examples that everyone can relate to. So that's great, I think.
Let's talk about McDonald's, right? I think McDonald's is a brand, a fabulous example of a brand that thrives. We may agree, disagree with what the products are, whether they're healthy, unhealthy. I mean, I don't know, but as a brand, purely as a brand, it thrives, and it thrives because it's got a very clear purpose, and its purpose is that it wants to be, and I didn't know of it till I read about it sometime, but it just made so much sense. Its aim is not, McDonald's doesn't say we'll give you the best burgers. McDonald's doesn't say we'll give you the tastiest food. McDonald's just say we'll give you the best quick service experience. And that's at the heart of every McDonald's that opens everywhere, right? They assure you that they're going to be quick. They assure you that you'll feel that you've got value for money. And you love that about them. That's why you go to a McDonald's, right? A McDonald's, in order to do that, and in order to thrive, and in order to stay true to its purpose, a McDonald's may realize that in India, making a dish which is very popular in US, or a burger which is very popular in US, may not necessarily ensure that it's served out the quickest, because the technicalities are different. So what does McDonald's do? McDonald's customizes wherever they go, right? If there's a McAloo Tikki burger here, it's because there's demand for it, but it's also very quick to dish out a McAloo Tikki burger, and it's fast selling. So there are volumes over there, and it's quick service, right? And there's just one item that is common across all McDonald's in the world, just one item, Anirudh. Everything is served quickly, everything is value for money, but the one item is French fries across the world. That's the only item that's common, right?
I
So,
was
so
actually just going to get into that part of it, which was humanizing and globalization that brands are doing, and how McDonald's is probably the best example of it. I think Mac Aloo Tikki, and even in the Middle East, for example, Mac Arabia, so
absolutely,
customized to the market that they're catering to. Uh,
absolutely.
you put out a valid point that the only unique thing that's actually there across or standard across is the fries. The French fries
No,
is standard across.
absolutely. I mean, just take one more example of maybe Walmart, right? I mean, and the reason why I'm saying it is to thrive, you don't need to have a very lofty or a very idealistic purpose statement, right? Walmart is very clear to, they say that our purpose or our goal is to help people save money so that they can live better lives. It's as simple as that. So every day cheap, every day lowest price. It all originated from Walmart, and you see a lot of brands really trying to do that right now. But they stayed true to it. Why are they thriving? Why is Walmart a thriving brand in an age of digital D2C, everything? They stayed true to, they know what the North Star is. You don't go to Walmart because you're going to get the best shopping experience. You go because you're going to save money, right? And that is why the brand thrives. So, what is that common thread, Anirudh? Just coming back to that, in my opinion, I think just having that North Star is quite important. We can go on about other aspects, but this is absolutely critical.
So in very simple terms, the why of the company is what's the most essential.
It is, but I would add a caveat there that, I think sometimes it's very romanticized, the whole idea of a why, and everyone, because Simon Sinek made it very popular and rightly so. I think sometimes people confuse having a why with also being socially responsible. But as I explained in the case of Walmart, you feel that why because you need to do something good for the world. It's of course in an ideal world we all want to contribute in a bigger way, but in a larger way for the greater good. And that's a good thought to have. But I think it's also about from a pure play business point of view, being very clear on what your strategy is for the long term. Why have you really established that brand? I think that becomes really important, and it needn't always have an idealistic uh, tone or wordplay attached to it.
Very true. Very interesting. Now I'm going to ask you something in terms of or moving away from thriving and more about uh, building building the part of setting your base to build a brand that's going to thrive.
Right.
What do marketing managers or people who are just getting into this field, uh, what do they look for? What is their go-to? How do they create a strategy?
I think um, all at the end of the day, there's this saying that customer is king. It's true, right? There's also a saying that the customer is always right. That is not always true. But is customer the king and queen? Yes, they are, because at the end of the day, you are making products for their consumption. And what they do with that is actually going to determine what happens to the rest of the stakeholders, which includes your shareholders, employees, everything, everyone else, right? So a lot of it actually, while actually designing a marketing strategy, what you really look at is that insight on what really differentiates your product, if at all there is anything differentiating. It's absolutely okay for your product to be a Me Too product too, right? Not every product needs to be, as they say, a little hutke.
Right.
If you have a product which is similar to someone else's, sure, you take them on in pricing, you take them out on distribution, you take them out on visibility. But I think as a starting point for any new marketing manager, you try and look at what makes your brand unique before really coming to the conclusion whether that there is nothing unique or there's something fabulously unique. What would make the buyer put that rupee on the table to experience or buy a brand, right? And I think that is the starting point for all strategies. That's what's going to determine, how much money you want to, as a marketing manager, invest in the promotion of your product. That's what's going to determine, once you know what that insight is, you know where those consumers are, from where you've got that deep insight. So that would determine where your media spends are going to go, right? So I would say the starting point really is your consumer, because the end point of your product is also the consumer. But the starting point of how you devise a marketing strategy is that insight as a consumer, right? And I would say that once you have that insight, um, that insight is not something unlike a purpose, Anirudh, whereas an organization or as a brand, I have a purpose which is far more long lasting, which is like a North Star. And insight needn't necessarily be something that I have to hang on to forever, right? I think your consumers change, the competition landscape changes, the kind of exposure your consumers are getting are changing because of different brands really coming in. But what is that one insight you're holding on to for the time being, or when you're devising a strategy that you're going to base everything on? I think that becomes very important.
Coming back to the golden circle that Simon Sinek has
Yeah.
all taught us all about, right? It's why, then it comes to how, and then it really comes to what. Uh,
Yes.
I'm going to take a quick second to answer a question that's come into our chat. Others has asked us actually MBA versus AMP, which is best for 6 years work experience, product manager with engineering background. I'm going to take this very quickly. In all honesty, Adarsh, if you have the time and you have the money, use that wisely and go for an MBA from a good reputed school. I think it's a great program, like a great experience altogether. But not taking anything away from the AMP program. But mostly, I'd say an MBA. Yeah. If you want to add something through, please go ahead.
I don't have that background. Very difficult to answer that question, but I think depends purely on what you really want from it, Adarsh. By the end of it, do you want to get into an organization that's going to give you better career prospects? There's a certain answer for that. Do you want to walk away with specialized learnings, which currently are areas which may not be your biggest strengths, and you feel that what you're working on currently, if you improve on those aspects, they're going to be your strengths in your current work area, and AMP might work better than an MBA. So I think it really depends on what you really want with your career, how you want to actually shape it, right? No two size fits all. That's why you have a lot of programs. But I would tend to agree with Anirudh that an MBA and um, a full-time MBA in some sense just gives you that wider perspective. And this has nothing to do with the education. This has nothing to do with the placements or the professors you'll have. It just exposes you to people who have a worldview which is different from yours, right? You will interact with people, you will stay in a residential campus, meet people, disagree with people, change your opinion on certain things. And I think that becomes very important because many times at work, you find yourself in situations where you don't agree with everyone on everything. But early on, if you've done an MBA and or a 2 year program or a 2 year master's, I think you find enough instances where you um, end up changing your mind or learn to live with something or change someone else's mind on something. So yeah, complicated answer to a very simple question that you had.
Thank you so much, Dhruv, for adding a little more perspective to what I had to say. Uh, but saying that, I'd also like to ask our attendees that if they have more questions, to please feel free and put it in the question answer box. We're more than happy to answer any questions we have or you all have. Uh, but moving on, Dhruv, you're also a voice of LinkedIn. You have over 50,000 people that follow you on LinkedIn. Um, how have you reached? How have you reached that milestone one? And have you done specific things to reach it, or is it like a purely organic way of behaving and communicating on LinkedIn that has gotten you to that milestone? I'd say.
I would say, Anirudh, that it's been fairly organic, and it's been consistent effort to actually engage with an audience, but to engage with an audience not with the view of actually engaging with them because I feel someone's really waiting for the content and I have to put something out which will appeal to them. But LinkedIn for me started off as a journal, really, where I would, just put down my reflections and thoughts on experiences that I've had. Maybe it's a conversation I've had with you and something I've noticed, and linking it a bit with what we experience in day-to-day lives at work, and just putting it down. And I felt that somewhere people connected with these thoughts and continue to do so. So that's how it really started. But I have to give credit to my organization also here because I think one of the tenets that we have of a people experience at Godrej. For the audience here, I work at Godrej, and I've been working at Godrej for a while now, for over a decade. We have three tenets, Anirudh. One of them is called tough love. One is your canvas, and the third is whole self. I'm going to talk about whole self here because that's what's linked to LinkedIn. But it's also about an organization really saying that here's a person who's expressing their thoughts. I know many people who actually share thoughts and have to write these comments that this opinion is mine. I don't endorse anybody. This is not my organization's point of view. I think I got encouraged by the organization and people took note and they said that, it's refreshing what you write and we sort of, encourage you to do this. So would I have continued doing this had that not been the case? No. So did this community build over time because there's support from everyone, including family members who are reading and saying that it's great you're investing time on this, while you're doing other things, and that's how it started building. And at the end of the day, I think you'll find a lot of tips on, and I'm no expert on that. I'm sure there are ways to hack the algorithm. You can really put some pictures and generate good likes and comments on that, but I think at the end of the day, what I've realized, it's about being authentic and it's about consistency, right? And consistency doesn't mean just waking up one day and saying that today I have to definitely post, but consistency is actually, like a muscle where you're saying that today I've written, tomorrow I want to write because there is something I've observed and I want to articulate it. And I want to see how well I can articulate it, right? And sometimes it's about giving yourself that half an hour to say that, oh, let me frame it this way. Let me also frame it in another way. And this is not just for LinkedIn, but then you realize it starts helping you in other areas of life as well, right? So one thing leads to another. And the point I was trying to make is that LinkedIn, work, life, they're all interlinked in some way. I know a lot of people really say that, how do you manage, carve out time for LinkedIn? No, I don't carve out time for LinkedIn. LinkedIn is a part of who I am because I experience something at work all day-to-day life. I put it down. And what I put down helps me back in my work because of how I'm able to articulate things and have clarity on what I want to do.
Wow, very, very interesting. But I'd say at the forefront of it, it was both your intent and your organization support that has gotten you to where you are right now.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Great. Okay, now that you've already mentioned that you've been with Godrej for over a decade, you've worked with three different segments. What
That's right.
was, yeah, the three different segments. Now you've done, you did real estate, you moved to consumer goods, and now you're with policy. What do you think from that point is the differentiation and positioning of these three brands? How does it go different? Because Godrej as a master brand, we understand that it is Godrej at the end of the day. It gives you warmth, you have confidence in the brand. So, but then you've positioned yourself very differently in real estate and consumer goods, and now you're in policy. So how does that work? Like, how do you position yourself differently in these three segments, even though you're still Godrej?
I think that's a great question. And I think part of that also comes with, having made some unconventional career choices. And how I would like to really say that's like a learner attitude. We walk into something, but with a mindset that what you've done in the past is only going to add in and build on to what you're trying to do instead of having to start from scratch all over again. I know we spoke about this yesterday, Anirudh, where you spoke about how you had some interest in marketing, digital marketing. Now you're doing supply chain. I would say that a lot of us are like that, and me being no different. And in Godrej, I've done various stints in different departments in different companies, but it comes with that whole thought that at the end of the day, like you said, you're working in a company that's values driven, which is warm and which is going to be ethical in many ways. But at the same time, the differentiation really comes in when you look at a particular brand and you look at how that industry is and how that brand is really going to play things out in that industry, right? So if you talk about real estate, you also have to look at how real estate is poised in India at the moment. right? How it has historically been as an industry, and what difference can the warmth, trust, and ethical aspect that Godrej brings into the industry, how can that really add on to that sector, right? So I think I've been talking about purpose for a while, Anirudh. I think each of our group companies have their own purpose. But the purpose is more like an internal reflection, really, to say that why is it that we're into this business, right? Assuming we all want to make money, what is that thing we're going to do, which in turn will also help us make money? At a group level, of course, there's this whole larger purpose. We say that as Godrej Group, we place people and planet alongside profits. And somewhere all of that really percolates into different group businesses, but with a functional and a industry specific nuance, right? So let me say that at Godrej Properties, let's see how that plays out. In Godrej Properties, we talk about taking this people and planet alongside profit. We focus more on the people aspect, right? And we say that we build homes that create everyday joys, right? And that's the North Star which all employees really have. So, how you design your homes, what are the amenities you give? I think that word everyday joy is just sort of hung in somewhere. At Godrej Consumer Products, right, where we make soaps, we make consumer goods for people, we are very clear that this whole people, planet, profit aspect is going to translate, and people, planet together with profit is something that we call the whole idea of goodness. So we say that we're going to take this goodness into emerging markets, right? Where people can experience, our goodness, which is why, you, like I said, at Godrej, again, from the top, you are a very values-driven, warm company. But when it comes to a particular business, say consumer products, you further nuanced it into saying we're going to take all this and we're going to be very sharp and clear and going to be in emerging markets, which is why you'll find a brand like Godrej Consumer Products today in India, in Indonesia, in African countries, in South America, right? These are all emerging markets. So that is the shape that it takes, really. And that is how you have to also adapt to the surrounding and the industry and the company that you're in, even though you might be part of this larger conglomerate. But you sort of have to distill down that larger than life purpose into what the sharpness that each brand is trying to bring in. So yes, I think one has to be a little conscious in how you're putting in your efforts, knowing where the business is in its life cycle, and what it's trying to achieve.
Very and they're obviously very, very different life cycles for each of those respective businesses. Again, the target segments are very different. But as you, I think, very well put that your interest in marketing and marketing in different segments is what has driven you to explore different areas, I'd say, right? Very, very, very interesting. We have a question that has come from Vinod. He wants to know, what are the key areas to work on to be a successful marketer?
Thanks, Vinod. Very interesting question. And different marketers will give you their own insights to this. But I feel the one thing which one can't compromise on is how do you do the boring, uncool things well? I think that is the key to being a successful marketer, because when you talk to your leadership, when you look at social media, you see these really cool campaigns that brands come out with every once in a while. It's a campaign that's going to win an award. It's a campaign that will have some celebrity. So that's probably, if you ask me as a marketer, that's something that you'll do once a year, twice a year. You can't make a campaign go viral every year. You can't make something big on YouTube every second day. The boring part is, we've created this campaign, sabne taaliyan baja di, aapko award mil gaya. You go back and then you're like, okay, now what am I going to do with this to ensure that the person who clapped for me is going to stay hooked onto this, is actually going to be interested in what I'm doing, is going to inquire with me. I'd still be able to convince that person to come back to me even I'm not that cool anymore. And there is some new kid on the block who's doing really well and who people are clapping for. And yet he's going to continue buying my product. till I come back with that next big dhamaka for which everyone will be clapping. So this is something that I call the always on approach, where you're always there with your consumer, right? And you're not a flash in the pan, which everyone's going to clap for, but ultimately may not lead to anything. So that's something we can't compromise on. It's boring sometimes, it feels mundane sometimes, but that's what gets the business. And that's what the company appreciates at the end of the day.
Thank you for that, Dhruv. That was again, as you said, again, it's doing the boring things that make you a great marketer, right? And I think that's quite a standard, even for us in supply chain. Like it's the same thing day in day out, but you can have one good breakthrough, and that's your highlight for the year. And you probably pretty much work for that to ensure you can find that one highlight in the year. And I think that's pretty much a very good standard to put out, that you're not going to have a success every day, but you have to accept that for what it is.
No, absolutely. I would go as far as to say, Anirudh, what is success really? You need to be clear on what success is as a marketer. Uh, there's an interesting study that most award-winning campaigns actually don't really result in. You may be at Cannes, you may be winning all the awards over there. A question you need to ask yourself is, so what impact did it have on your brand? In the marketing fraternity, everyone will be clapping for you. Did it really impact your business? How do you measure that? So tough to do that, right? But you know it because when you worked on something, you'll know uh, if it's having a long-term sustainable impact.
Yeah, in today's terms, it's pretty much conversions, right? If a campaign worked well for you, are you
Absolutely.
getting conversions?
Absolutely, right? Brand building is important. Conversion as a marketer is also very important.
Right. Uh, I wanted to understand, Godrej is also a hub for innovation. They have some great things that go about. How does innovation work when it comes to Godrej, and how can we take it forward as marketeers into our organizations, I'd say?
It stems from the purpose, really, right? I think everything really ties back to the purpose in some way. So, like I said, let's take the example of Godrej Consumer Products, Anirudh, which I feel is our most innovative company, because we are continuously making these innovative products. But why are we making them? Because we want to democratize some of the categories that we are in. Why do we want to democratize these categories? Because we want to serve the people of emerging markets. And that is our purpose, right? We want to serve the people of emerging markets. So if you're serving them and you take the products that have historically been successful in the developed world, um, uh, you are really taking that product successful in one area, expecting it to be a success in another. It may not work really. But what can you do to customize some of that and take it to the consumers you want to serve, which is where some of the innovations have really come in for a brand like Godrej Consumer Product. For example, I think one of the biggest, let me just take a moment to talk about one of the biggest innovations we've had, and some of you may have seen it. It's actually a product where a powder, when mixed with water, converts into a liquid hand wash, right? And we were the first ones in the world to really do that. But where did that really come in, and why did this product really come in from, and how does that really and tie in with the purpose that I was really trying to say? When you actually have a powder and convert it into a liquid, you are essentially reducing the cost significantly. So the cost of that product is one third of what a conventional hand wash would be. So you're able to serve the consumers in emerging markets, because in emerging markets, the propensity to buy, the buying power, purchasing power is not as much as in some of the other countries. So you have innovated to solve for something that is linked to your purpose. Two, you're not transporting, you're reducing your cost of transportation, and also reducing the carbon footprint, because suddenly you're transporting sachets which are going to be prepared at home by consumers. So you're able to transport far more than what you would ordinarily if you were transporting liquid hand washes. So how does that tie in, Anirudh, with our purpose? Because we place the planet alongside profits.
Sustainability,
We
yeah.
also have to take care of the planet, and we're reducing our carbon footprint because of that. So, if you have a product that ties in so beautifully with your with your purpose, you realize the only way you're going to make it happen is through innovative products, and that's how the innovation culture really comes into Godrej.
So constant uh constant drive, I'd say, or a rush to kind of be able to deliver something that's different from what's already out there.
Absolutely,
Correct.
absolutely.
Very nice. Uh, Now I'm going to move to advice that you would probably want to give, or something that you would give startups which like just getting into the industry. Anything that you would tell them that, this is something that you should kind of ensure you're doing. One, that's one question. The second thing is, how often can brands really switch in terms of what they're trying to offer? Like, how often can they change their identity? That would be the right way to put it.
To answer the second question first, how often can you switch your identity? You can switch your identity. And I think we need to be clear on what identity really is. If you're just talking about, if you're just talking about a logo, how it appears, you can do that. I think logos are memorable. The identity, the visual palette, they're all memorable. But I think as Air India is realizing right now, changing the probably changing the logo is the easier part. The tougher part is actually, the vibrant colors you bought into your logo. Is your organization and your culture as vibrant, as dynamic as that? From what I hear in some of the interviews of their MD, it's taking more time than they thought it would to integrate the Vistara culture into Air India, right? So you can change your identity when you feel the new identity will better serve the consumers you are trying to serve. So like I said, it is possible that your consumers now expect something else from you, or your consumers have changed, or the profile of your consumers is not what it was 20 years back. You change your identity then, but changing your identity also then means changing the back end of it, and not just the front end of what you're really trying to do. So that is what I would say to answer that question. And the first question was on startups,
Yeah.
right? So I would say not just for startups, Anirudh, let's just talk about, and I think you touched upon this whole aspect of humanizing, right? And I think be it startups, be it legacy brands, but I'm a big believer in the whole idea of brands being authentic in the way they would be with their consumers. And when I say authentic, it's really being human. Being human isn't about being perfect. It's just about how I would want to engage with you. You would want to engage with me. Like we're having a conversation, like we mean well for each other. So that is what I would say some of the brands should really aspire to do. Let's take some examples over here, Anirudh. Yeah. And talk about what we really mean by um, startup brands humanizing themselves. Let's look at a brand like as humans, do we expect empathy from each other, Anirudh? What would you say? We do, right? And I think this I think some brands do it exceptionally well. And since the Cricket World Cup is going on right now, I remember the last time in 2019, it was actually the semi-final, India versus New Zealand, and we lost that match. But I still remember this incident because I was taking a flight out that day, right? And it was a Vistara flight. And we sat on the flight, and you would expect the pilot to say routine things that, we land at so and so time, the temperature is so and so, etc. The pilot actually started off by saying, first of all, thank you for flying with us today. I know it would have been a very difficult decision for you to fly today when there's such an important match going on. So thank you for flying, not flying with us. Thank you for flying. And since you've chosen to fly, thank you for flying with us. right? And choosing to fly with us. For your information, India is batting first and the score is so and so. So it's really that whole idea of empathy really coming in to say that I know you've had a tough choice to make and you've still chosen to do that. Here's what I'll try to do to make your thing a bit easier. It's not a pilot's job to tell the score of what's going on in the match. He decided to do that, right? And I figured this is something that all Vistara pilots did that day. It's about being empathetic, right? At the end of the day, these are the things that you remember. I remember during the pandemic, as brands, we try to be warm, right? As humans, we try to be warm. Anirudh, I think we agree on that we try to be cordial and warm with each other. Yeah, Big Basket. I mean, I would classify that as a startup, not anymore, but I think at some point it was definitely one of the first few unicorns, right? And this is a very interesting aspect of Big Basket being this warm brand, just like humans would be warm with each other. Maybe more brands are doing it right now, but there's this time when during the pandemic, I remember if you order from Big Basket and you were at the checkout and you wanted to place the order would get placed before you actually made the payment, right? So the order would get placed and then it would ask you, the order has been placed, we are processing it. Would you want to pay by cash? Would you want to pay by card? And in case you're not able to pay in the next half an hour, we'll cancel the order, but we are going ahead and making all the preparations so that we can deliver it to you in 2 hours. Why I say it's warm and it's warm not because it's a fuzzy feel good thing, but that's how we behave with each other if we were neighbors, right, Anirudh? If I'm going out to the market and I'm getting something and you're like, hey, I want this, can you get this for me? I say, yeah, sure, I'm going to do that. And what do you say? Take the money from me. What will I do if I'm a good neighbor, Anirudh? I'm going to tell you that you can pay me later. It's important I go and first get it right because I'm getting late and I have to deliver things to you. And then what
Right.
do you do? As a good neighbor, you also pay me back, right? So again, I spoke about a startup in Big Basket that tries to do it. I spoke about a slightly more established brand like Vistara, although that's also a new brand, but you'll find it all across. And there are endless examples, but I also have to be conscious of everyone's time.
Yes.
But we could have a detailed chat on this some other time.
Thank you so much, Dhruv, for touching upon how empathy plays such a big role in how you build a brand and being able to humanize these emotions through brand communication and the brand presence. Uh, it's been a very, very enriching experience for me to have this discussion with you. I'd say on behalf of AMP and Harappa, very, very a big thank you, a lot of gratitude for taking the time out to do this. To all our attendees, very, very a big thank you to you as well. Since Dhruv touched up on the India versus New Zealand match, we're sorry for keeping you away for 45 minutes from the match. I haven't checked the score, so I'm probably going to do that once we close this. But thank you so much, and we wish you a great, great evening. Thank you so much, Dhruv.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure. Thanks so much.